Have you ever looked at your relationship and quietly wondered, why does this keep happening to me? Why do you feel intense chemistry with someone who makes you anxious? Why does calm feel boring, but unpredictability feels like love? Why do you keep choosing partners who activate your deepest fears? What if the issue isn't your standards, and it isn't your luck? What if your childhood nervous system is choosing your partner, and it isn't choosing safety? The body does not choose what is healthy. It chooses what is familiar, and what was familiar to you as a child, even if it was chaotic, distant, or emotionally inconsistent, may now feel like attraction. As children, we adapt to survive. If love came with tension, you learned that tension means connection. If affection was inconsistent, you learned to chase it. If emotional closeness felt unsafe, you learned to suppress your needs. These adaptations were intelligent. They protected you. But the nervous system does not grow up just because you do. It continues to scan for what it recognizes. Not what is good, what is known. If your early environment required you to work for love, you may now feel most alive when you are earning it. If you had to monitor someone's moods to stay safe, you may now feel chemistry with emotionally unpredictable partners. If closeness once led to disappointment, you may unconsciously choose people who stay just out of reach. This is not self-sabotage. It is loyalty to your earliest blueprint of attachment. The nervous system confuses familiarity with safety. Calm can feel unsettling if chaos was home. Consistency can feel suspicious if inconsistency shaped your childhood. Emotional availability can feel overwhelming if vulnerability once led to pain. So when you say, "I don't know why I'm attracted to them," what you may really be saying is, "My nervous system recognizes this emotional climate. The body is trying to resolve unfinished business. It is drawn not to what fulfills you, but to what mirrors your earliest relational experience." And here is the deeper truth. You are not choosing from weakness. You are choosing from adaptation. Healing begins when you stop judging yourself for the pattern and start understanding it. Because once you see that attraction is nervous, system-driven, you gain the power to pause. Instead of asking, "Do I feel chemistry?" you begin asking, "Do I feel safe?" Instead of chasing intensity, you start noticing regulation. Instead of mistaking anxiety for passion, you learn to recognize steadiness as love. Real safety may feel unfamiliar at first. It may even feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is not danger. Sometimes it is simply growth. When you retrain your nervous system through awareness, boundaries, and emotional presence, your attractions begin to shift naturally. You stop chasing the feeling of home and start creating a new one inside yourself. And from that place, you don't look for someone to complete the old story. You look for someone who supports your healing. No, I will tell I am pure and I saw my impurity and fators first on an isis. The nervous system chooses familiarity over health. The nervous system is not a moral compass. It doesn't reward what is healthy and it doesn't punish what is harmful. It does something far more primitive than that. It tries to keep you alive. And to the nervous system, alive often means not surprised. It means staying inside what it can predict, what it has already mapped, what it has rehearsed 1,000 times. That is why so many people end up repeating relational experiences they swore they would never live again. Not because they are foolish, not because they secretly enjoy suffering, but because their body recognizes a familiar emotional landscape and mistakes recognition for security. When you grew up in an environment where love came with tension, where warmth was followed by withdrawal, where affection had conditions, your nervous system learned that connection is something you earn, manage, or chase. It learned that closeness comes with a cost. And then later, as an adult, your mind may say, "I want stability, kindness, respect," while your body quietly moves toward what it already understands, the subtle edge of uncertainty. The emotional distance that feels like a challenge, the unpredictability that keeps you scanning, performing, probing. Familiarity doesn't feel good. Familiarity feels normal. And the nervous system will choose normal over healthy if healthy is unfamiliar. Safety, for someone who never had it consistently, can feel strangely empty at first. Calm can feel like disinterest. Consistency can feel suspicious. A partner who communicates directly can feel much. Because directness wasn't part of your early emotional vocabulary. Someone emotionally available may even activate discomfort, not because they are unsafe, but because your system isn't used to receiving without earning. If your childhood taught you that love is unstable, your nervous system may interpret stability as a trap, waiting for the moment it disappears. So you don't relax into it, you test it, you doubt it, you feel restless. And you may unconsciously return to what stimulates the old pattern, because at least the old pattern makes sense. This is why chemistry can be such a misleading guide. We often describe chemistry as attraction, but sometimes what we're feeling is activation, an old alarm system lighting up in the presence of a familiar emotional dynamic. That flutter in the chest, that obsessive thinking, that urgency to be chosen, that tightness when a text goes unanswered, people call it passion. But in many cases, it is the body remembering. It is the nervous system saying, I know this place. I learned how to survive here. The tragedy is that survival skills can masquerade as love. The body confuses intensity with intimacy, because intensity once meant you had to pay attention in order to stay connected. And when you live from that wiring, you can end up believing that peace is boredom, that steadiness is lack of spark, that a relationship without emotional spikes must be missing something. But the something you miss may simply be the familiar stress that kept you alert as a child. You don't miss the person. You miss the nervous system state. You miss the emotional weather you grew up in, the tension before the storm, the hope after the storm, the cycle that taught you to equate love with unpredictability. This isn't about blaming your parents as individuals. It's about understanding the environment your nervous system had to adapt to. Children don't get to choose the emotional climate they're raised in. They shape themselves to it. They become attuned to what is required to maintain connection. Some become pleasing. Some become silent. Some become hyper-independent. Some become caretakers. And those strategies don't vanish when the child becomes an adult. They become the invisible hand guiding attraction, attachment, and tolerance. You don't just choose a partner. You choose the emotional role your nervous system already knows how to play. Healing begins when you stop asking, what's wrong with me that I keep choosing this? And you start asking, what did my nervous system learn that makes this feel like love? Because that question carries compassion instead of shame. And when shame loosens its grip, you gain something essential: choice. You can begin to notice that what feels magnetic may not be safe. You can notice that what feels calm may not be boring. You can begin to pause long enough to ask your body a new question. Not, do I want them? But do I feel at peace in their presence? Do I feel more like myself or less? And at first, the healthier choice may feel unfamiliar. It may feel almost too quiet. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It may simply mean you are stepping out of survival and into something your nervous system has not yet learned to trust. The goal is not to force yourself into a relationship that feels dead. The goal is to retrain the body to recognize safety as desirable, to let your system learn, slowly and patiently, that love can be steady without being empty, that intimacy can be gentle without being weak, and that you don't have to suffer to be connected. When you understand this, you stop romanticizing the familiar pain. You stop calling anxiety a spark. You stop confusing longing with love. And you begin the most radical shift of all. You stop outsourcing your worth to whoever triggers your wounds the deepest. You start choosing the kind of relationship your nervous system has always needed, not the one it learned to survive. So deal why childhood adaptations shape adult relationships. A child does not have the luxury of analysis. A child adapts. When you were young, your survival did not depend on being authentic. It depended on staying connected. And connection for a child is not optional. It is biological necessity. So if the emotional environment required you to shrink, you shrank. If it required you to be pleasing, you became pleasing. If it required you to become invisible, independent, hyper-attuned, or emotionally self-sufficient, you learned how to do that with remarkable intelligence. These were not personality traits. They were survival strategies. Perhaps you learned to read the room before speaking. You monitored tone, facial expressions, subtle shifts in energy. You became highly sensitive, not because you were fragile, but because your nervous system needed to anticipate emotional weather. Or maybe you learned that expressing needs led to dismissal, so you stopped expressing them. You became low maintenance. You convinced yourself you didn't need much. Or maybe love only came when you achieved, helped, or performed. So you became exceptional at being useful. The child adapts to preserve attachment, but the adult often mistakes adaptation for identity. What once protected you now shapes what feels familiar and therefore attractive. If you had to earn love, you may now feel drawn to partners who make you work for it. If you had to chase emotional availability, you may feel magnetized by people who remain slightly out of reach. If you were the caretaker in your family, you may feel most comfortable with someone who needs rescuing. The coping strategy becomes the attraction pattern, not because you consciously desire struggle, but because struggle is where your nervous system knows who to be. If you learn to suppress anger to maintain harmony, you may now feel uncomfortable with partners who are direct and emotionally clear. It disrupts the old choreography. If you learn that closeness leads to overwhelm, you may pull away when someone genuinely shows up for you. And if inconsistency defined early love, stability may feel suspicious. Your system may look for subtle signs of threat where none exist, because vigilance once kept you safe. This is how childhood continues to echo into adulthood, not through dramatic memory, but through embodied pattern. You are not choosing randomly. You are choosing what aligns with the emotional role you learned to play, and often that role feels deeply familiar. The over-giver feels alive when needed. The peacemaker feels necessary when tension rises. The independent one feels strong when they don't rely on anyone. These identities were forged in environments where they made sense. But when carried unconsciously into adult intimacy, they can create relationships that replicate the very wounds they were designed to prevent. The tragedy is not that you adapted. The tragedy is that no one helped you outgrow the adaptation. The nervous system does not automatically update its software. It continues to operate from early blueprints unless brought into awareness. So you may find yourself repeatedly entering dynamics where you feel unseen, overextended, emotionally alone, or perpetually trying to secure reassurance, and wonder why it keeps happening. It keeps happening because part of you still believes this is how love works. Healing is not about blaming the past. It is about understanding the logic of your patterns. When you see that your attraction is shaped by early coping strategies, something softens. Shame gives way to compassion. Instead of saying, "Why am I like this?" you begin to ask, "What did I have to become in order to survive?" And that question changes everything. Because once you understand the strategy, you are no longer imprisoned by it. You can begin to notice when you are choosing from old protection rather than present truth. You can feel the urge to overfunction, to chase, to withdraw, to rescue and pause. You can ask whether this dynamic supports the person you are becoming, not the child you once were. The goal is not to reject your adaptations. They carried you through environments you did not choose. The goal is to thank them and then gently release them where they no longer serve you. When you no longer need to survive love, you begin to experience it differently. You are no longer drawn to someone because they activate your coping strategy. You are drawn to someone because you can be whole in their presence, because you do not have to perform safety, you can feel it. And that is the shift from adaptation to authenticity. Anxiety is often mistaken for chemistry. Anxiety has a very particular energy to it. It is sharp, electric, urgent. It makes your thoughts race and your body lean forward. It keeps you checking your phone, replaying conversations, analyzing tone, searching for signs. And in a culture that romanticizes obsession, that energy is often mislabeled as chemistry. But chemistry is not always compatibility. Sometimes it is activation. When you meet someone and your body lights up, that doesn't automatically mean you found love. It may mean your nervous system has recognized a familiar emotional pattern. The quickened heartbeat, the intrusive thinking, the longing mixed with fear. These sensations can mirror the attachment dynamics you internalized early in life. If love once felt uncertain, unpredictable, or conditional, then uncertainty may now feel intoxicating. The body interprets that intensity as aliveness. For someone who grew up needing to earn affection, the slight emotional distance of a partner can feel magnetic. The ambiguity pulls you in. The inconsistency fuels hope. When they give attention, it feels euphoric. When they withdraw, it feels devastating. That swing between relief and fear creates a biochemical surge: dopamine, cortisol, adrenaline, and the nervous system registers that fluctuation as significance. This must matter, the body says, because it feels overwhelming. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. Anxious attachment often carries a deep, unspoken fear of abandonment. So when you encounter someone who is emotionally unavailable or inconsistent, the old wound awakens. You feel compelled to secure the bond. You want clarity, reassurance, confirmation. The pursuit itself becomes charged. The uncertainty keeps the system hyper-alert. And hyper-alertness can masquerade as passion. If you were raised in an environment where connection required vigilance, where you had to monitor moods, anticipate reactions, or manage emotional instability, your body learned that love is something you must work to maintain. So when you meet someone calm and predictable, your system may not respond with fireworks. It may respond with confusion. Where is the edge? Where is the chase? Where is the emotional spike? Without the spike, you may interpret the relationship as lacking depth, but what you might actually be missing is the familiar stress. Anxiety narrows your focus. It creates urgency. It tells you that something important is at stake. And because attachment wounds are tied to survival in childhood, the stakes feel enormous. Being chosen feels like safety. Being ignored feels like threat. So when someone triggers that old fear, your nervous system reacts as though your well-being depends on the outcome. That intensity can feel like love because it is powerful, but power does not equal health. Healthy connection often feels quieter. It doesn't hijack your nervous system. It doesn't keep you scanning for danger. It doesn't make you question your worth with every interaction. It may not create the dramatic highs and lows that anxiety produces. Instead, it creates steadiness. And steadiness, to a system accustomed to volatility, can feel unfamiliar, even dull. This is the paradox. The very relationship that destabilizes you can feel exciting, while the one that stabilizes you can feel underwhelming. Not because it lacks depth, but because your body has equated intensity with attachment. Old attachment wounds are not healed through reenactment, though the nervous system often tries. You may feel drawn to someone who resembles an early caregiver, emotionally distant, inconsistent, hard to please, in the unconscious hope that this time the story will end differently. If you can finally be chosen by someone who resembles the original source of insecurity, can perhaps the old wound will close, but more often it simply reopens. Anxiety then becomes the background music of the relationship. You call it chemistry because it feels alive. Yet underneath there is tension. There is self-doubt. There is a constant negotiation with your own worth. And slowly, you may begin to abandon yourself in order to preserve the bond. When you begin to understand this dynamic, you stop romanticizing the rush. You start paying attention to how your body feels after interactions, not just during them. Do you feel grounded or depleted, clear or confused, expanded or contracted? True chemistry does not require fear to sustain it. It does not rely on unpredictability to feel meaningful. It grows in safety, in emotional presence, in mutual responsiveness. It allows your nervous system to soften rather than brace. The work, then, is not to suppress attraction. It is to become curious about it. To ask gently, is this excitement rooted in possibility, or is it rooted in an old one seeking resolution? When you can tell the difference between anxiety and intimacy, you begin to choose differently. Not from urgency, but from awareness. And awareness changes the quality of love you allow yourself to experience. A and O patterns are adaptive, not flaws. There is a deep and painful misunderstanding many people carry about themselves. The belief that their relational patterns are evidence of something broken inside them. Why do I keep doing this? Becomes, what is wrong with me? And from there, shame takes root. But patterns are not character defects. They are adaptations. Every pattern you carry was once a solution to a problem you did not create. If you became hyper-independent, it may have been because relying on others led to disappointment. If you became overly accommodating, it may have been because conflict threatened connection. If you learned to anticipate others' needs before they spoke them, it may have been because attunement kept you emotionally safe. These strategies were not chosen from freedom. They were formed in necessity. The child does not sit down and design coping mechanisms. The child absorbs the environment and adjusts automatically. The nervous system encodes what works. If silence reduced tension, silence becomes the strategy. If perfection earned praise, perfection becomes the identity. If emotional withdrawal prevented overwhelm, distance becomes protection. Over time, these adaptations harden into patterns. And then, in adulthood, when those same strategies begin to limit intimacy, We judge ourselves. We call ourselves needy, avoidant, too much, not enough. We pathologize what was once protective. But there is a profound difference between an adaptation and a flaw. A flaw implies defect. An adaptation implies intelligence. Your patterns are not evidence of weakness. They are evidence that you survived an emotional environment that required adjustment. They reveal how creative and resourceful your nervous system was in preserving attachment. The difficulty arises when the environment changes, but the adaptation remains. What protected you at 5 may sabotage you at 35. The hypervigilance that once kept you safe may now create anxiety in relationships. The emotional numbing that once reduced pain may now block intimacy. The people pleasing that once secured love may now erase your boundaries. But the presence of a pattern does not mean you are broken. It means your system has not yet updated. Healing is not about attacking the pattern. It is about understanding its origin. When you trace a behavior back to its adaptive roots, something shifts internally. The harsh inner critic softens. Instead of, why am I like this? You begin asking, what was this protecting me from? That question carries compassion. And compassion creates space for change, because patterns maintained by shame become rigid. Patterns approached with understanding become flexible. You don't outgrow adaptations by force. You outgrow them by creating new experiences of safety. When your nervous system learns that your needs will not lead to rejection, you no longer need to suppress them. When it learns that conflict does not equal abandonment, you no longer need to avoid it. When it learns that love can be steady, you no longer need intensity to feel connected. The goal is not to erase who you were. It is to integrate it, to recognize that the part of you that overfunctions, withdraws, chases, or clings once served a purpose. That part deserves gratitude, not condemnation. It kept you connected in circumstances where disconnection felt like danger. But you are no longer that child, and what once ensured survival may now limit fulfillment. When you see your patterns as adaptive rather than defective, you reclaim your dignity. You stop waging war against yourself. You stop framing your wounds as personal failures. Instead, you begin the gentle work of updating your internal map, teaching your nervous system that it no longer has to brace, perform, or protect in the same way. This is not self-indulgence. It is maturation. To understand your patterns is to honor your history without being imprisoned by it. And from that place, change becomes possible, not through self-criticism, but through awareness, patience, and the steady experience of safer connections. You are not flawed, you are patterned, and patterns can be transformed. Healing shifts attraction naturally. One of the greatest fears people carry is this: if I heal, will I lose my spark? Will I stop feeling deeply? Will relationships become flat? But healing does not numb attraction, it refines it. When you begin healing, you are not forcing yourself to choose different people through willpower. You are not white knuckling your way into better decisions. Something more organic happens. As your nervous system becomes more regulated, what feels attractive begins to change on its own, because attraction is not just psychological, it is physiological. When your system is wired around unpredictability, intensity feels magnetic. The push-pull dynamic creates a surge. The uncertainty keeps you hooked. But as you build internal safety, as you learn to sit with your emotions without panic, as you strengthen boundaries, as you stop outsourcing your worth, the old intensity no longer feels intoxicating. It feels exhausting. That is the shift. The same behavior that once thrilled you may begin to irritate you. The same emotional distance that once felt intriguing may now feel draining. The same inconsistency that once triggered pursuit may now activate clarity. You may find yourself thinking, I don't have the energy for this anymore. That is not cynicism. That is nervous system evolution. When you heal, you increase your tolerance for calm. And calm begins to feel nourishing instead of boring. You no longer equate peace with emptiness. You no longer need dramatic highs to feel connected. Your body starts craving steadiness, the kind of presence that allows you to exhale. This does not happen because you read a book or watched a video. It happens because you create new experiences of safety inside yourself. When you validate your own feelings, you stop chasing people to validate them for you. When you honor your boundaries, you stop romanticizing those who violate them. When you build self-trust, you stop being magnetized by uncertainty. The attraction system recalibrates. You may even go through a confusing period where you feel less drawn to your usual type. You might wonder if something is wrong because the familiar rush is absent. But what is absent is not love, it is activation. It is the old wound being stimulated. Healthy connection often enters quietly. It doesn't demand your nervous system's emergency response. It doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't make you question your worth. It feels steady, predictable, safe. And at first, that safety can feel unfamiliar, almost too simple. But over time, that simplicity becomes deeply satisfying. You begin to notice that you sleep better, that your mind is quieter, that you're not constantly analyzing text messages or bracing for emotional withdrawal. Your body softens, and from that softness, genuine intimacy becomes possible. Healing does not mean you stop feeling chemistry. It means chemistry stops being tied to chaos. You are still drawn to strength, depth, passion, but now those qualities are paired with consistency and emotional responsibility. You begin to value how someone handles conflict, how they repair, how they respond when you are vulnerable. Your attraction expands beyond surface intensity into emotional safety. This is the quiet miracle of healing. You don't have to fight your old patterns forever. As you grow, they lose their grip. The people who once activated you no longer hold the same power, and the kind of connection that once seemed boring begins to feel like home, not the home you survived in, the home you choose. And when attraction shifts from survival to wholeness, you are no longer looking for someone to complete a wound. You are looking for someone to share a life. That is not a loss of passion. It is the beginning of mature love. Healing does not mean erasing your past. It means understanding it so deeply that it no longer unconsciously directs your future. It means noticing when attraction is driven by old wounds and gently choosing differently, not from fear, not from force, but from self-respect. The real transformation happens quietly. You begin to crave peace more than intensity, clarity more than confusion, consistency more than chemistry. And one day you realize something profound. You are no longer attracted to people who destabilize you, not because you hardened, but because you healed. And when your nervous system finally learns that love can be safe, you stop chasing what feels familiar and start choosing what feels right. That is not just growth, that is freedom.